Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Miha and welcome to the channel. In this video, we will explore a tool called Notebook LM by Google. This is an AI developed specifically to work with your documents rather than rely on things that it might have learned somewhere online. We'll explore how to get started, we'll look at a few examples, and then I'll showcase a few inbuilt tools that are worth exploring. So let's not waste any time and jump right into the lab. All right, let's get started with Notebook LM. When you go to the main Notebook LM webpage, you'll be greeted with the screen. And what we want to do is start with our first notebook. A notebook is a conversation. It's where we will be uploading our documents with which we will be interacting. So we'll click on Create Notebook, and we are taken to the screen to add sources. Again, remember that Notebook LM will require us to share documents with it that it will then parse through. We have to provide something. It will not just use some kind of general knowledge that the AI is learned from somewhere online. So I will start with just one document. We'll start with one to build up, and I'll show you how you can build up this notebook. The first one I'll share is from Fujitsu. This is a private company's AI ethics casebook. And you'll see it will immediately give us a summary of what is in the article. Now, if we like this summary, we think this is useful, we can add it to our notes, the Save Note button. This will take this description, this one paragraph, and add it to the right here. This is where all our notes will appear. This is important because this will become a repository of every conversation, every analysis that we found useful, and we can then easily go back to it just by clicking it here on the right. You can also copy and paste this directly to the clipboard and then share it with somebody online. So now we have one document, but we want to work with more than one. So let me continue uploading and adding a few more sources. Up here on the left, you'll see a button that says Add Source. I will click this and let me upload a few more documents on ethics and AI. It is now adding all of these to this workbook. Some of the larger ones might take a little bit longer to process, so please be patient. You can decide which of these documents we will use by selecting or unselecting them. I will leave all of them selected for now. So let's begin by requesting AI to create a summary for us. So let's begin with the summary. What we have here is still the summary from Fujitsu, but what if we want a summary of all the articles? We can go with any of the recommendations down here, but let's work with our own. First, let's ask AI to create a summary of AI and ethics across all of these documents. It will now use only these documents to create a summary. Remember, this is really important, and it's why this tool is so useful because it is not bringing in knowledge from the outside. So here's a summary of all of these articles. A couple of things I want to point out. First of all, these summaries can be large depending on how much material you feed, depending on how long your articles are, how complex they are. These might be very long summaries. You'll see this one is actually still being generated. The great thing about this tool is that once it creates a summary, it will tell you exactly where it's taking the content from. So for example, it opened up with a short summary about what is AI. And if you mouse over the source numbers, for example, 1, we can see exactly the text it's drawing on, and at the bottom, which document this is from. If we wanted to follow up and see this text in this document to verify it, we simply click on the source. It will open that PDF and highlight exactly where it took the idea from. Right? We can do this for every one of our sources. If you want to minimize this window, you want to click this funny icon up here. And again, we can do this for all of our sources, right? We will always be told exactly where this is being drawn from, and we can always go to the source to see what is being referenced. So this is the core of what we do in Notebook LM. We use it to analyze and compare sources. Now here, for example, I have documents on AI and ethics in governance, both in the public and private sectors. So we could, for example, ask AI to prepare a comparison. How does the private and public sector approach to AI and ethics differ, and how is it similar? Notebook LM will now rely on these documents and only these documents to prepare this analysis. Again, the larger your documents, the longer this will take. So be a bit patient as it's processing this. And so right now it's creating a summary. It opens up by giving us the quick introduction. It talks about some of the driving forces, the ethical frameworks in the public sector, um, accountability, regulations, and it gives us a quick summary. Again, every one of these sources, right? If we wanted to see what drives the public and private sector, it will provide us the sources for every one of these arguments. Again, this is really important because we can immediately go and verify whether or not the summary makes sense and whether we agree with the conclusion. Maybe there's something in context that was lost, or perhaps there's something else in the document that we might want to draw on. So always verify your information. Even when using your own documents, your own material, always go back and verify to make sure that the analysis makes sense to you. There's a couple of other things, though, that I want to highlight, because often we have a lot of large documents and maybe we don't know where to start, or maybe we just want overviews to be prepared for us. And this is where, again, this tool shines. On the right, there are 4 options that I want to highlight. The first is a study guide. Now, this might be very useful if, say, you are uploading documents that you have to study. Maybe you're preparing for a CPA exam or a CPM exam, or you're studying particular regulations to prepare for an important stakeholder engagement meeting. You could use this to create a study guide. And by clicking this button, it is now doing this all on its own. Again, this might take some time. I've done this with 40, 50 sources. Well, it took a very long time to generate. So please be patient. The good news is while it's generating this, you can do other things. So here is our study guide. And what it's done is it's created a short answer quiz, right? So we could test our own knowledge here, right? Here's a couple of questions based on our documents. It also provides the answers for us. We can verify. It gives us essay format questions. So if we wanted to challenge ourselves to try to write essay responses to these questions, it even includes a glossary of key terms that are referenced in our documents. So this is a great way to review the material that you've uploaded if you're preparing for an important engagement. We can also prepare briefing documents. This is extremely useful if you are using these documents to prepare briefings for meetings, or you want to create concise summaries for yourself so that you have a very quick overview of what is in these documents and then decide how and where you're going to delve into them. So here is our detailed briefing summary. You see it's neatly structured and broken down into different categories. We can also create an FAQ. Let's say that we have a lot of documents and we want to create frequently asked questions to upload to our webpage. For example, this is going to be very useful if you're running a program and you have people sign up for the program. Maybe there's courses, maybe there's different payment options, there's different instructors, or there's different schedules, and you consistently getting similar questions. You can use the FAQ function here to create frequently asked questions. So here is a couple of frequently asked questions. And what it's going to do is going to try to figure out what are the themes that are covered often in these articles. And based on that, we'll assume that those are the things that might need to be clarified. Again, I don't think these documents I have here are the best use case for this, but I wanted to show you that it can generate FAQs for you with answers, again, drawn directly from the documents that we uploaded. You can also create timelines. So perhaps we're interested in how AI and ethics has developed over time in the public and private sectors. This is a relatively new topic, so this will not go back in time very far, but it's going to give us at least a couple of years that are covered by the documents here. I do know that some of them go back at least 5 or 6 years. So here is our timeline, breaking down on how developments happened over time. So it's basically going through our documents, looking for timestamps and creating a timeline, right? From 2016 onwards, some of the major developments in this field, and it also includes a cast of characters. I imagine this will be quite useful if you're looking at material with a lot of historical context. Maybe you're actually studying history, or perhaps you're looking at how bills or laws or regulations processes have developed over time, and you have documents going back 10, 20, 30 years. Maybe you're looking at how your company's products or your city's services evolve over time. That might give you, I think, a more useful overview. But I wanted to showcase what it can do. The final thing I want to show you is, I think, one of the more interesting things. this tool can create a podcast based on the content you upload. This is really great if you do not have time to read through all these documents and you want to create an audio review, something that you can listen to maybe on your drive or maybe on your walk or workout, and then use that as a source to decide what you want to delve into in more detail. So this podcast will give you a very good foundation, but I would still encourage you to explore any documents you upload in your own. Again, verify that the conversation it generates is relevant and is indeed correct on what you were after. But let me show you what it can do. So I will customize this. You can simply generate, but I will customize this to create a shorter podcast just to make it a little bit quicker. Default is about 30 minutes. And let's say we are particularly interested on the application of AI and ethics in local government, right? These articles I uploaded cover many different use cases, but let's say we're only interested in local government. So we will ask it to focus on AI applications in local government. And we will ask it to generate. Now, this does take time. I've done this with 50 documents and it took an hour to generate the podcast. The good news is while this is being generated, you do not have to stay on this page. You don't even have to stay logged in. You can go and do anything else. So here we go. Our podcast is ready. Now the short podcast here is just under 6 minutes. The default will be between 20 and 30 minutes, and I will have it create the default length podcast as well, and I will share that in the video description below so you can download it. Now, let's have a listen to what the podcast sounds like.
Okay, so let's dig into this. You've shared quite a few reports and case studies with us, all looking at artificial intelligence, specifically how it's starting to pop up in local government.
Right.
Our goal for this deep dive is really to pull out the key takeaways. What are the specific uses? And crucially, what are the sort of ethical points we need to think about?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to give you a really clear, well-informed picture from these sources.
So what's striking right off the bat?
I'll pause it there. But this sounds pretty good, right? It sounds like an actual podcast. You can even interact with it. This is still in beta testing, but let me show you how this works. Imagine you're listening to a radio show or podcast where you can call in. So let's try this.
Okay, so let's begin. Shared quite a few reports and case studies with us, all looking at artificial intelligence, specifically how it's starting to pop up in local government.
Okay, our listener wants to join in.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you tell me a little bit more about this artificial intelligence? What is artificial intelligence? I don't really understand this yet.
That's a really insightful question.
Now let's unpack this a bit.
So when we talk about artificial intelligence,
We're essentially talking about machines
that computation
that can perform tasks
that typically require human smarts,
like learning, problem solving,
making decisions.
about artificial intelligence.
Sure.
Right. So we can actually have a conversation with the podcast as generated as if the hosts are, people, right, that we're interacting with. This is incredibly powerful because as you're listening to the podcast on your materials, on the articles that you shared, if something isn't clear, you can stop them and ask a question. And one more thing I want to highlight, you can add your own comments and your own notes by clicking the Add Note button. This allows you to write your own summaries, write your own thoughts. You can add anything here that you want. I'll just leave a short note here. This is just a short note, but you can expand and write something as long as you want. You can rename your note. And it will be saved. We can also convert note to source. So let's say you wrote a 2 or 3 page kind of feedback, maybe your own thoughts on ethics in AI. You can click convert to source, and it's going to take this note that we wrote here, Right, let me close. It's going to take this note and it just created this source. So the note itself then becomes a source. So as you continuously add more notes and your own reflections, you can build that as part of your sources, right? It can become part of this larger notebook that you're building in Notebook LM. And of course, any comments that you write, any notes that you write, can then be used to generate a new podcast. So this is Notebook LM, and I hope this quick overview has given you ideas on how you could use this in your own work. Everything that we just did, you can do in the free version of Notebook LM, but there are a few differences between the free and the paid version that are worth keeping in mind. First, the paid version allows you to save more notebooks at once. 2, it allows you to upload more documents into each notebook. And 3, you have access to more minutes when creating podcasts. I would recommend starting with the free version and deciding whether or not you need to upgrade. If you do have a subscription to Google Gemini, you already have access to Notebook LM Plus as it is bundled with the Gemini subscription. As always, please leave your comments in the video below. Let me know how you are using this tool and what you thought of the video. Of course, if you've enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and liking. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.